Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Rochelle Delia, and today I'm really excited to cover with you the Financial Foundation Educational Program. This is the first module, and in this module, we'll discuss how to increase our cash flow and manage our debts. So let's get started and hop right in. I know it's going to be action-packed and really valuable for you. As a reminder, this information is not for accounting, investment, legal, or tax advice, okay? This is not an offer to sell any product or buy a security or an insurance product. It is purely for educational purposes only. As you might remember, we're on a national campaign for financial literacy, and the whole purpose is to bring financial awareness and education to the masses. And of course, if you're going to be a real estate investor with housing joint venture, then really having a strong financial foundation is of utmost importance. So do hop in, pay attention today, because really and truly, this is just going to allow you to be that much better and more refined as you go towards building your real estate investing business plan and being a really shored up, ready to go real estate investor. Our mission is to build and protect wealth for families. Ideally, we want to help people move from financial insecurity to financial independence. So our vision is to build an industry of 1 million business associates worldwide, and we're really trying to just revolutionize financial services. The whole purpose is that people have a lack of understanding, planning, and support. So our whole mission is, we do it right and we do it with pride. So welcome and congratulations for being here. You are part of the lucky few because you know what? Most people work for money, but there are very few people that know how to make money work for them. We believe that if you can control your finances, then you control your future. So here we go. This is workshop number 1. Again, this is a 4-part series. And in this workshop today, we're going to discuss how to increase your cash flow. Our whole goal here is to turn spenders into educated savers. Now, I do want to mention, if you do have the digital copy of the workbook that accompanies this presentation, you will see in the upper right-hand corner the page number associated with the page that we're on in the workbook up in the upper right-hand corner of every slide. So if you do have the workbook and like to follow along, just refer to the upper right-hand corner. That'll tell you what page we're on. All right, so let's hop right into it. So what will you learn today? The first and biggest item that you're going to learn is that it's not really about how much money you make. It's really about how much you keep. It's true. I know we've all heard of these big fancy attorneys or investment bankers or doctors who make a lot of money, but they also spend a lot of money. So at the end of the day, it's all about net, not necessarily about gross, okay? And here we know that money is not the greatest wealth, but applied knowledge is the greatest wealth, okay? So here's some of the main items that you'll leave this conversation with today. We're going to discover an extra $100 to $200 per month that you didn't even know that you had. We're going to discover the cost of wasting $6.60 a day. And if we're honest, a lot of us do that, right? We're going to learn where our money is going. And more importantly, we're going to understand some misconceptions. Specifically, we're going to define what an asset and a liability is. We're going to know the tax advantages of being a business owner, as well as the potential of earning money. And here's the rule, right? If you're going to increase your cash flow, there's only 2 ways to do it. The first way is to earn more, and the second way is to spend less. And we're going to talk about both of those today. Have you ever heard there's 2 types of people in the world? Because there are, right? There's either A-type people or B-type people. So let's look at A-type people. A-type people are folks that save first, and then they spend whatever is left over after they save, okay? B-type people, on the other hand, they tend to spend first and then try to save whatever's left, just little nuggets and scraps on the end. The funny part is that B-type people end up working for A-type people. So obviously we want to be A-type people, right? We want to make sure that we are putting something aside for our futures. We want to make sure that we have savings and only spend what's left after we've saved as aggressively as we can afford to. So again, A-type people, they get their income, they save it, and they invest their savings, and therefore they tend to be wealthy. B-type people spend their income on debt and more spending, therefore they're broke. So let's find ways where we can save more and spend less, okay? The first and most important rule is that you want to pay yourself first. This is not new news. We've all heard this before, but paying yourself first, really, that's the nuts and bolts of it. You know, whenever you get income, you have to say, you know what, myself and my future come first above anything else, above my light bill, my water bill, my insurance, anything. Myself and my future come first. I'm going to save first, and after I've hit my saving goal, then I have to spend on whatever is left over. I have a budget for my spending because my saving has to happen. So here's what pay yourself first means. Would you rather make payments to your family, your children, and your future, and then spend what's left over? Or would you like to spend first and try to save what's left over for your family, your children, and your future? Obviously, one is better than the other one, right? One feels better. One sets you up better for future you. And so the more we can save for ourselves first, the better off we will be. So, hey, how do you do that? It's called a budget. The B word. I'm sorry. What are those daily expenditures? And, you know, how can I track if I'm spending my money wisely or not? So this is a chart where you can track how much money you spend on a daily basis, right? So the date, what that item is, how much you spend on, and then how'd you charge it? How'd you spend? Did you charge it on a credit card? Did you use check? Did you get it straight from your checking account or a debit card? Things like that. And, you know, if you look at where a person's spending is, that'll tell you where their heart is. So the more money you spend on something, the more you care about it and the more important it is to you. So remember, if I purchase an item today and I charge it, will I be able to pay it back in full when I get the bill? Have I saved 10% of this month's income yet? If so, rewards are okay if I pay in cash, right? But if I can't pay it off on the next bill and I haven't already saved at least 10% of my income, you really got to think about if you actually need that. Okay, so first step number 1 was to look at where we're spending now. Step 2, let's look at ways we can reevaluate where we're spending to find ways to save. So let's go through some possible monthly savings. The first is increase your tax refund, right? The way you do this is by increasing your deductions, and what that does is that it puts more into your monthly check. Obviously, you need to check with your HR or payroll departments if you are an employee, but this is one way that you can save more money by, hey, let me go ahead and get more of my federal tax dollars now as opposed to giving a free loan to the government. You can reduce or eliminate any premium or satellite cable subscriptions and just downgrade to basic. You can upgrade your deductibles on your insurance policies. So your auto insurance, homeowners, make those deductibles $1,000, and that's going to lower your monthly premium. Of course, we can reduce some of our destructive expenses like lattes, alcohol, and cigarettes. Cancel any extras on our phone bill, like extra data. Look for corporate discounts that we might have. Hey, if you have over 20% equity in your house and you're still paying what is called PMI, or principal mortgage insurance, you might be able to eliminate that. Just a simple call to the bank will be able to say, hey, I have over 20% equity in my home. I don't need to pay this insurance anymore. That'll reduce costs. If you own a cell phone and you still have a landline, most of us don't, but if you do, hey, get rid of the landline. Cancel or lower any AD&D policies. Accidental death and dismemberment policies only pay out if you die by accident. Most people don't die by accident. They die by sickness or something else. So you can have it if you want, but it will be wise to lower it or to cancel those policies altogether. Look at any credit lines you have or any items that you finance, like auto loans, appliances, bicycles, trailers, anything like that. If you have to eat out, here's a secret, insider tip right here. Go to happy hour. The happy hour menu typically has similar items as the dinner menu, but they're just discounted, sometimes 20 to 30% off. It's coming from the same kitchen, the same chefs, It's just you're going at a time before the dinner crowd arrives, so they're giving you a discount for coming. So 3 to 6 p.m., that's the time to go out. And you can get full off a happy hour. Real talk. And then, of course, reevaluate your property and casualty insurance on a regular basis. You want to make sure you have sufficient coverage, but again, look at those deductibles and see if you can lower costs there if possible. And tried and true, bring your lunch. Bring your lunch. Even if you're an entrepreneur, bring your lunch. You don't need to go out to eat every single day. A couple of other ones. How many of us have gym memberships that we don't use, right? We pay $180 a month for like a fancy CrossFit gym, which I'm not saying there's anything bad with CrossFit, but like you can definitely just go outside and walk for free. Just buy tennis shoes. You know what I mean? Any magazine subscriptions that are on auto renew, you feel free to cancel those. Organize your errands and carpool with others. Reduce travel expenses. Do your own chores as opposed to outsourcing. Put on a sweater inside your house. Keep the house a little cooler than you'd like or warmer. Wear a tank top. Use coupons when you're dining out or buying your groceries. Hey, owning your own business is excellent for tax deductions, right? So one of the things that we can talk about in terms of real estate investing is if you should have an LLC. Even if you don't have an LLC, having rental property or being an investor with a separate business entitles you to tax deductions. So definitely something to consider. Obviously consider buying used cars, play free video games, cut down on any of those online subscriptions. Not like Housing JV, of course, because this is a productive one, but Spotify, Apple Music, are those really adding to your life? Audible, probably, but some of those other ones, you might want to consider, where can I trim my budget? If you can avoid ATM fees, checking account fees, overdraft charges, these banks, they tax you $36 every time there's an overdraft. You do a couple of those a month or a year, you can easily spend $1,000 that's completely unnecessary. Again, reducing parking or gas costs. How much could you save if you were to carpool or walk or bike or take public transit? Obviously, we can cut down on shopping of clothes and gadgets. I don't necessarily need the next iPhone or MacBook or whatever. And then finally, spend less on gifts for family and friends, right? So if you tally all of those up, I'm sure you're able to find at least an extra $100 or $200 per month that is unnecessary spending that you can recoup into your monthly budget and put that towards savings for your future. Here's the bottom line. What's the cost of wasting a $6.60 a day that could be growing at 10% interest? Let's see. So if I had a Starbucks habit and I was going to Starbucks and, a normal coffee there, venti or medium size is $6.60. If I were, instead of giving that to Starbucks or, wherever you're going for your coffee or your daily snack, if you were able to put that in an account that could grow at 10% interest, how much money would that be over time? Well, let me tell you. After 10 years, just a simple decade, you'd have $42,000. Over 20 years, that's over $150,000. And here's the kicker. If you did this for 30 years, right? 30 years, $6.60 a day. Pennies. You'd have $434,000. How many retired folks would love to have an additional $430,000? I tell you, a whole lot of them. A whole lot of them, right? So just simple moves that are not restructuring your entire life, but just making very wise decisions and being smart with the money you do have can really set you apart miles and miles ahead when it's compounded over time. The main point is we need to figure out where our money is going. So here's a formula. If we look at our net income after taxes and we subtract retirement, which should be about 10% of our income, savings, again 10%, tithes giving, 10%. So that's an additional 30% of your income after tax, right? Straight off the top. Then we take out our living expenses. So first, right off the top, after we get our income after taxes, the first 30% is going towards us. 10% in retirement, 10% in savings, 10% into giving. We believe in the law of reciprocity, right? So regardless of your religious beliefs about tithing, the law of reciprocity works, and giving giving, all it does is show that you're grateful and allows you to not hold on to those funds thinking that they're yours. No, you have to circulate the economy. So giving and tithing is a spiritual law, and whether you choose to abide by it or not doesn't mean it's not working, right? So food for thought. Anyway, living expenses. You have food, housing, transportation, insurance, debts, entertainment, clothing, medical expenses, school and childcare expenses. And then, of course, we all need some fun money or miscellaneous money, right? But it's up to you to figure out where your money is going. Once you have that, now you're in control and you can actually change the game for the better for yourself. So here's what we want to do. We want to take our net spendable income, okay, and we want to subtract our entire living expenses. So that is after all of our 30% going towards ourselves, we subtract our living expenses as well, and that'll let us know what's left over. Hopefully we have a surplus, we actually have something left over, but if not, we have a deficit, right, that we have to address. So we need to circle back and see where we can cut some more. All right, moving on. Assets and liabilities. Do you know what an asset is? Here's our definition. An asset is something that has monetary value. Okay? What's a liability? A liability is a claim on your asset. So here's an example. I think we can all agree that a house is an asset. If you own a house, that's an asset. It is something that has monetary value. But if you have a mortgage, then that is a claim on your asset. So the mortgage on your house is a liability, even though the house is still an asset. Hopefully that makes sense. What is net worth? Net worth is the sum of your assets minus all your liabilities. Okay? Now, so overall, you take your assets, subtract your liabilities, and that's your net worth. So when you open up Forbes and people say, this guy is worth, $1 million or $20 million or whatever, that's what they're talking about, right? So that means their assets are worth so much. And when they subtract all the liabilities, the loans, anything they owe, whatever is left over, that's their net worth. That's how much this body is worth, okay? So the whole name of the game is to grow your net worth. So it's not the liabilities are bad necessarily. If a liability will allow you to increase your assets and increase your net worth, obviously to a higher degree than the liability is, then it's worth it, 100%. You're growing your net worth. So growing net worth is the name of the game. All right, so here's a worksheet. So you can total up your net worth, okay? So just as we mentioned, on the left-hand side, these are all different categories of where our money and things can be. So in terms of real estate, what real estate do you own, right? So if there are any homes, you list those under assets. But if there are any claims on those assets, then those will be liabilities. So a first mortgage, a second mortgage on your house, a line of credit, rental properties, obviously, those are all assets. Cars and boats, same thing. You can have a car, it can be free and clear, or you can have a loan on it. Your checking account, savings accounts, any cash or cash equivalents like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, those all count as assets. Qualified money, again, 401k, pensions, IRAs, 403bs, Roth IRAs, all those are cash on the barrelhead or assets that contribute to your net worth, okay? So ideally, you would add up all your assets, subtract your liabilities, and that will give you your net worth, okay? So net worth takes into account everything, physical property, real property, paper, everything. So here's some food for thought, and I really like this definition. So we just talked about assets and liabilities and building your net worth, right? Well, I really like Rich Dad Poor Dad's definition of an asset or a liability. And if you haven't had a chance to pick up the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I highly recommend it. It's a really great read, excellent for beginners. But even if you're not a beginner and you haven't read the book, it's a very healthy perspective. And sometimes you just want to be reminded as why it is you're doing what you're doing. So very excellent book, wonderful storytelling, and it will certainly open your eyes to a lot of things. But back to their definition of an asset and liability. In short, an asset puts money in your pocket. Love it. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That makes sense, right? So a rental house is an asset because it puts money in your pocket. And even though your primary residence, the house you live in, even though the value of it can make it an asset, truly, it's a liability if all it does is take money out of your pocket. It may still have some value, but realistically, if it's just an expense, it's a liability. So here's the point. Rich people buy asset. The middle class purchases liabilities that they think are assets, right? So rich people buy gold, stocks, bonds, real estate, while the middle class is trying to buy Range Rovers and luxury vehicles that are actually liabilities, but they're, but they think they're an asset. Or they buy a McMansion in the suburb thinking that it's an asset, but the cost of maintaining that property is so great and it does not produce any income for them that it, in actuality it ends up being a liability. All right, moving on to debt management. So here, what do you think? Is buying a new car an asset or a liability? All right, I did kind of run it for you in saying that it was a liability because it is. That is, unless you're driving for Uber or Lyft or, renting out your car in some other way for income, then typically it's going to be a liability. What about all those luxuries you have? Here's looking at fancy cars, fancy shoes, designer purses, extended vacations, things like that. They're awesome. They're fun, but they're probably liabilities. So ideally, we want to cut down our debt and reduce our liability. And it's true, with commitment and discipline, you can get out of debt. So I think we can all agree that living debt-free is a less stressful way to live, right? Just imagine back in the day when you were a child and everything was just happy-go-lucky, right? You had no debt or no payments. Life was a lot simpler then, wasn't it? Yeah. If you could use your income for building financial freedom, how much better would your life look and feel if you had no financial stress whatsoever? I think that's what we all want. So let's talk about some strategies for reducing credit card debt in particular. Oh, this one hurts. The first one, don't get more debt. Live below your means. I know this is hard, right? Because it's so easy to swipe, but honestly, you can't make any progress if you keep piling the mountain higher and higher. At a certain point, you have to stop the madness and just chip away at the mountain. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Another way is to use cash, debit, or prepaid cards. If you don't use a credit card, you can't charge up more debt. Additionally, pay only for things that are necessary, like your food, mortgage, insurance, and utilities. It is boring, it sucks, but it's also adulting, okay? And then cut out any unnecessary expenses, again, like cable TV or technology upgrades, anything like that we can do to reduce those unnecessary expenses. Did you know how bad the credit card debt problem is? This is a little bit dated, but, as of January 2013, there was $2.8 trillion, with a T, dollars in consumer debt. That's ridiculous. The average American family owes over $15,000, almost $16,000 in credit card debt that they carry month after month. And again, this information is a little bit dated, so I'm pretty sure it's higher now. But isn't that crazy? In 2013, the average family had $15,950 in credit card debt. So what your family can do? This may sound dumb, but you can literally freeze your credit card. And there are two ways to do that, right? So you can, literally put it in some ice and freeze it in your freezer. And only if you need to make a purchase do you defrost it, like with a hairdryer, to use the card. Or you can call the credit card company and ask them to put a freeze in your account, meaning that you cannot make any purchases unless you call them and ask them to unfreeze it. All this does is make it more difficult because, let's be honest, it's a PETA to have to call somebody when you're in Macy's trying to buy some new shoes. Oh, excuse me, I got to call American Express and have them unfreeze my card. That's annoying. You're going to be like, I don't even want these that bad. Like, I want them, but I don't really want them. So I'm just going to leave it here. And that's the power of freezing the card. The fact that it's so annoying to have to call and wait on hold to unfreeze the card account is what will prevent you from making more purchases that are not necessary. You'll only do it if it's something really important that you actually need to use the card for. So again, the objective is for the person to get out of debt and begin living within their income means. So again, you can contact the creditor and ask them to freeze the credit limit and not offer you any more credit. Or, hey, you could just be disciplined and stop using the card and take the cards out of your personal wallet and put them in a safe hidden space. Could be on ice or not, your choice. But take them out of your card. If you don't carry it around, you can't charge it. All right. Trivia for you. Once a credit line is paid off, is it a good idea to close the account? Thinking? No, you do not want to close the account. That is false. Okay? Because only closing the account will lower your debt to income ratio. And therefore, even though you've paid off the account, now any other balances you have are a larger percentage of your overall available credit. So you're not doing yourself any favors. You want to leave open those accounts. Did you know that the average family spends 25% of their income on taxes and another 10% servicing debt? It's crazy. It's really crazy. So I want you to do an example for me, right? Play along, even though this is recording. Let's talk about being a creature of habit, okay? Clasp your hands together, like you're in a praying position, and record which thumb is on top, okay? For myself, my left thumb is on top. That's my natural way. I just put my hands in my lap, and I clasp them together. My left thumb is on top, okay? Let's try, again, crossing your arms. Which arm is on top? For me, my right arm is on top. Okay? Which is my natural way to be. Which side of your mouth do you apply lipstick on for the ladies? Men, which side of their face do you start shaving on? Huh? Here's the thing. Now that you've done these, I want you to start over. So clasp your hands together, and I want you to actively clasp your hands the other way. So for me, instead of my left thumb being on top, my right thumb would be on top. Feels weird, right? What about crossing your arms? So like me, I crossed my arms and my right arm was on top. When I actively put my left arm on top, it feels awkward. It feels so weird, right? Even when we're grooming ourselves in the morning, it's funny. You brush your teeth. You'll start on one side or the other, and you do it the same way every day. We're creatures of habit. The whole point is that sticking to a new budget, creating the new financial habits, they're going to feel weird. They're going to feel different in the beginning because we're creatures of habit. Until we create new habits, where having this budget, we're freezing our credit lines, we're being mindful of the amount of spending we have, that becomes our new normal. So, hey, what is the true cost of debt? The fact is that when you have debt, you're paying lots of interest to someone else, and that money is not working for you at all. So here's a rule of thumb to help you figure out just how bad it is, or good, right? So it's called the rule of 72. And how it works is you divide the number 72 by your interest rate. The result is a number of years it takes for either your debt or an investment to double. So it can either work for you or against you, okay? So let's say that you have a savings account that's giving you 4% interest rate, which would be amazing. And if you have one of those, give me a call, right? I'd love to have that. So if you have a 4% interest rate on your savings account, then the amount of money you have will double in 18 years. I mean, I'm happy to know it's going to double, but that's a really long time. You know what I mean? If you were to get 8% return on your account, that means your money would double every 9 years. That's better, at least, for sure. What about 12% interest? Okay. At 12% interest, your money doubles every 6 years. That's awesome. But what are credit card interest rates? 18, 22, 25, 37, 40, right? If your credit card is at 18%, how long does it take for that borrowed amount to double? Let's talk about it. So let's assume that you have a credit card and you're age 30 today. Okay? So in the first example of the credit card, it charges you an 8% interest, which would be an amazing card, by the way. So that means that credit card, according to the rule of 72, and if you didn't make any interim payments, then your balance would double every 9 years. Again, the rule of 72 can work for you or against you. So we just talked about how it can work for you as a savings, but let's look at the negative effects if this was the balance on your credit card. So let's say at age 30 you have $4,000 credit card balance. That's completely reasonable, not hard to do at all, right? By age 39, it's $8,000, 48, 16. By the time you're ready to retire, that's $64,000 in credit card debt. Off of like 2 vacations. $4,000 is 2 vacations. Like, it's not even anything crazy. All right? So let's talk about that same $4,000, but this time you have a 12% interest rate on your credit card. Again, these are really low rates, and I know most cards start at 18 and only go up from there. So let's say that you have super amazing credit and you have 12% interest rate on your credit card and 4% interest, $4,000 balance, excuse me. By the time you're 66 and ready to retire, you have $256,000 in credit card debt. Right? It's crazy. All right, last one. This is the most realistic example. This one, credit card, 8%, 18%. That means the balance is going to double every 4 years. Okay? I'm about to show you just how awful this is. By the time you're age 66, with an 18% credit card interest rate, by the time you're age 66, you have over $2 million of credit card debt. Now you see how Visa makes money? Right. So, name of the game is to pay as little interest as possible on your debt and gain as high as interest as possible on your savings. So, you may have heard of something called debt roll-up strategy. And essentially, it's a way for you to pay off your debt more quickly. But have you ever heard of those debt counseling services where they say, hey, call us and we'll get you out of debt very quickly? Do you know how they work? Well, the way that they work is by asking you to stop paying your debts for at least 3 months. At that point, your credit card and other debtors will be quite upset with you. And so at that point, they're willing to negotiate a smaller balance. So once you are behind, typically at least 90 days, then you can negotiate a smaller balance with your creditors. Now, of course, in the meantime, since you have not been paying your credit card bills, what you should do is save that money so you have a lump sum that you can offer them. So you can say, hey, I know I owe you $10,000, but since I haven't been making my $1,000 monthly payment, I now have $3,000 in a lump sum I can offer you. And because you're behind, the companies will typically accept a lower amount as a one-time lump sum payment. But hey, what do you think happens to your credit score if you do that? Crash and burn. Your credit score is going to go to crap because now you have late payments, you have missed payments, and you have showing 90 days or more late. That's not so good, right? So there has to be another way to paying off your debt. And we call that the debt roll-up strategy. So if we apply the principles of debt roll-up, what we do is we first start out by increasing our cash flow. We then attack the smallest debt first and go forward from there. Now, there are some other ways to implement this strategy. I've heard other people do it by attacking the smallest interest rate first, which, hey, if that makes you feel better, go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with that strategy. But for most people, starting with the lowest balance first makes them feel like they have a sense of accomplishment. Because if I've paid off something, then hey, I can say that I paid that off. Even though it might not be the highest interest rate, at least I know I paid it off. And so that momentum breeds upon momentum. Okay? So here's a repayment schedule that we're going to walk through a hypothetical, right? Just so you can see how this would work in practice. Excuse me, I had to take a drink of water there. Okay, so this is a normal family, okay? They live on 123 East Main Street. And we're going to go through their series of debts and how they are able to apply the debt roll-up strategy to pay down their debts more quickly. All right? So the first creditor is First Horizon. This is their home loan, home mortgage, at $158,000. They have an interest rate of 6.75% and a monthly payment of just over $1,000. It's a 30-year mortgage, and the total amount of their debt, the total payments they will end up paying is $361,000 on a $158,000 balance. That's how it works. That's how banks make money. All right. Here are the rest of our creditors. So U.S. Bank, Chrysler, Visa, Nordstrom's, Target. Got it. And in each of these, this is what we would describe, So we got a house. We have a $30,000 line of credit. We have a Dodge pickup truck. We bought vacations on our Visa, as well as TV and some miscellaneous stuff. We went Christmas shopping at Nordstrom's, got some Sears furniture, trinkets at Target, and again, Christmas at Macy's, okay? Our total balance of all of our debts added up together is $225,000 and $225,475. Okay? Here are our interest rates. And again, feel free to start with the lowest interest rate first, if you like. Totally, or the highest interest rate first. Totally your choice. But we're going to begin with the smallest balance. So, as you can see, we have ordered them in order of the smallest from the bottom to top, from Macy's to First Horizon. Okay? Here are our monthly payments, remaining number of payment terms, and total amount of debt we'd end up paying. Okay? So our total payment is $2,186. We have, again, 30 years of payments left. And off of our current balance of $225,475 in balance, if we pay everything as agreed, we would end up paying over $450,000 in debt, debt interest payments. Okay, so here's the same stuff, but in this case, we're going to apply the debt roll-up strategy. So same balances as before. Again, our total minimum monthly payment is $21.86. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add an additional $100 to our debt roll-up. We were able to look at our budget, clear up $100, and we're going to apply that to our payments. Okay? So let's see how that works out in practice. So let's start with Macy's. We owe $150 to Macy's. We currently make the minimum payment of $25 per month. When I add that $25 to my newly found $100, then that means I'm going to pay Macy's $125 per month, okay, on my $150 balance. So at $25 a month, that meant that I had over 6 months of payments remaining. But now that I'm paying $125, that means I can pay off Macy's in a month and a half. Not even, right? So 1 month and a little bit more, and we're done. Macy's complete. Awesome. Okay, so now that Macy's is paid off, we can take that whole $125 and we can apply it to the $25 we're currently paying to Target on our $525 balance. Okay? And so now our total payment to Target is $150 per month. Now, instead of over 2 years, because that total payments for Target was 25.4 months, so that's a little over 2 years, right? 24 months. So our new payoff is 4.7. So what this is saying is in 6 months of applying the strategy, just with $100 extra, I've paid off both Target and Macy's. Yeah, that's great. Next up, Sears. So now we're 6 months down the road. Let's say we start in January. By July, I'm coming for you, Sears. Okay, so I'm taking that $26. I'm adding the $150 that was my previous Target and Macy's money. So now I'm paying $176 towards Sears. 8.4 months, done. Sears is over with. So now, by that following March, plus or minus, Sears is off as well. So I've been doing this thing for just over a calendar year, and now I have 3 debts paid off. This is just with $100. Imagine if you got even more. Okay? And so forth it goes. Nordstrom's, $226, right? So instead of over 2 years of payments, we'd end up paying off Nordstrom's in 1 year, right? And so forth and so on with our remaining payments. So all we did was take our original $21.86, add $100 to it for a total payment of $22.86, okay? We ended up cutting down our total payments from 29 years to 12 and a half years. That's it. That is all, folks. So let's look at this again. Our current debt total was $225,475. we were paying combined monthly debt payments of $2,186. Our real debt, in terms of principal, interest, everything, was $451,349, and it's going to take us 29 years to become debt-free by applying $100 to our balance, right? And of course, not spending anymore. Really important there. Our total current debt was the same. Again, we increased our monthly payments by $100, but we were able to reduce the total real debt payments by over $120,000. And the time until we're debt-free was cut in half, more than half. So from 29 years to 12.2 years. So again, this is amazing what a difference just $100 can make. So what if you were able to add an additional $200 or $300 a month, right? Like you could actually make some moves here. All right. So next up, let's discuss an emergency fund, okay? So an emergency fund is money for when life doesn't go your way, okay? So this is when you get in a car accident, something goes wrong with your home, you need to purchase a new appliance, you get laid off of your job, or you or a family member gets sick. These are all emergencies, okay? Here's the truth. No matter how much you plan in life, the unexpected happens. And in order to prepare for life's little disasters, set up an emergency fund to help pay for any resulting expenses. If you don't think you need an emergency fund, hey, consider these expenses or scenarios. Again, you get major car repairs, a major home repair, let's say your basement floods. You have to replace appliances, you lose your job, a serious illness or hospitalization. Or hey, maybe it's not even you, maybe it's someone you care about. You have extended elder care or long-term care that's needed. Point blank, having an extra source of funds can give your family peace of mind during a very stressful time. So a basic rule of thumb to determine how much you need is to set aside 3 to 6 months of your total expenses. Okay? So step one, start with $1,000. Like you could actually do some things with $1,000. You can buy an emergency plane ticket. You can get some car repair started. You can actually do some things that are necessary if you have at least $1,000. After that, increase it to 3 times your monthly income. Then, increase it to 6 times your monthly income. Now, you're essentially bulletproof. So where do you put your emergency fund? Hey, there are a lot of options here. You can put into bond mutual funds, like bond funds, money market funds, or hey, just a separate bank account that's separate from like your spending account. And you want to make sure it doesn't have a debit card or online access. You actually want it to be annoying to get this money. Otherwise, it won't be there for in case of emergencies if it's too easy to get it. Here's the thing. When you have savings, you can walk tall. The state of your savings has a lot to do with how tall you walk. Your savings affect the way you sound, the way you walk, the tone of your voice, your physical well-being, and hey, even your self-confidence. You know, a person without any savings is always running. They must, right? They must take the first job they're offered, or practically so. They sit nervously on life's chairs because any small emergency is going to throw you into the hands of others. Without any savings, a person has to be too grateful. Now, you know, gratitude is fine or whatever, but like being in a constant state of gratitude is a horrible place to live. Oh my goodness, my apartment is awful and I live in the hood and I have no food. But I'm so grateful to have it, you know, because hey, at least I can lay my head down. So gratitude is great, but like you don't want to have to be grateful for something that really is not that great. Okay? So with a person with savings can walk tall. He can appraise opportunities in a very relaxed manner. He can have time for judicious estimates and not be rushed by economic necessity, right? My bank account isn't making me make this decision out of fear. I'm making it because this is the right decision for me. A person with savings can afford to resign from your job if, you know, something from your principles violates them, right? And hey, for any reason that you never need to. And so a person who can afford to quit is much more useful to his employer, to his company, and therefore they're readily promoted. Why? Because they can speak the truth. They can afford to give the company the benefit of this most candid judgments. You may have heard of this as FU money, right? A person with savings can afford the wonderful privilege of being generous in family and neighborhood emergencies. You can take the level stare of any man, friend, stranger, enemy, doesn't matter. That ability shapes her personality and her character. You can't be bought. You already have everything that you need. You're safe, you're secure, you shored up your bases. And the truth is, the ability to save has nothing to do with the size of your income. Again, we know, or you may be aware of many high-income people that spend it all. And they dart through life like little minnows, right? But J.P. Morgan, who's known as the Dean of American Bankers, he advised a young broker, he said, hey, take the waste out of your spending and you'll drive the haste out of your life. And that's true. Even more so if you don't need any money for college, for a house or retirement, because all those things are taken care of, then save for self-confidence. Because with the self-esteem and peace of mind that comes from having savings, you can walk tall through life. This is not bad advice. Yo, just put money aside. It's going to make you feel good. So final thoughts. Are you willing to be disciplined with spending and live the rest of your life debt-free? Hey, we all know the cash is king. And so maybe it's time for you to perform some plastic surgery on some of your credit cards. I thought that was funny. Buy things you need and not things that you want. Because ultimately, who are you going to work for every day? Are you going to work for your employer, for your government, for the bank, for yourself? Who's really benefiting from your hard-earned money? Probably not you if you're an employee. So, again, a person with savings can walk tall. So what we need to do is we increase our cash flow. We know that one way to increase cash flow is to spend less. But hey, another way is to earn more. How do we accomplish that? You do that by being a business owner. We got to understand the cash flow quadrant. Okay. So this comes from Robert Kiyosaki's other book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. He has a number of books, but another book of his is The Cash Flow Quadrant. Again, highly recommended. So people earn money in one of 4 different quadrants. Okay? Here they are. The first one is employee. Being an employee, we all know what that's like. That means you have a job. Okay? A business owner means that you own a system and people work for you. So this is someone like that owns McDonald's. Okay? So they own a system, kind of like a franchise or something, where people work for them and earn them money. The McDonald's franchise owner doesn't necessarily have to take your order. He can if he so chooses, but he doesn't have to. And even while he's on vacation in Florida, the little teenagers are still flipping burgers on his behalf. That's a business owner. Self-employed means you own a job. So you are the chief cook and bottle washer. So this will be your attorney, your CPA, a bakery shop owner that doesn't want to have any employees. All right? And then finally, you have an investor. An investor is someone whose money works for them. So that is a real estate investor, right? So you don't necessarily have to do anything once that house is rented because you're going to get rent checks every month just by nature of the fact that you own the asset. That's an investor. Okay? So ideally, you want to be on the right side of this cash flow quadrant. You want to be a business owner or an investor because, well, outside of many other reasons, there are many tax advantages to it. So 80% of individuals fall into either the employee or self-employed category. And there are very few tax advantages to those 2 quadrants. 20% of individuals in the general population are either business owners and investors. There are many tax advantages to being in these 2 quadrants. So ideally, we want to shift our income from being an employee or self-employed to being a business owner and investor. So which one would you rather be? Right? Remember, money is time. Time is money. So there's some tax breaks of being a business owner if you were not aware of them. Some things are you get a home office deduction. You get to write off all of your office supplies and furniture, equipment, any software and subscriptions, right? So technically, housing JV is a taxable expense for your investing business, right? Mileage to go and see anything, travel, meals, entertainment, insurance premiums, retirement contributions, all these things are tax deductible for business owners. And what you can do is put the extra savings into your own pocket. Hey, ultimately, financial independence is not a dream. It's just a decision, right? So let's review what we learned. Did we help you find ways to increase your cash flow? Yeah? So we talked about how contributing $200 a month in savings, returning 10% per month, right, compounded, equals $434, 263 cents over 30 years. Wow, that's the equivalent of $6.60 a day. Yes, it does require commitment and discipline, but the truth is it's feasible for everybody. And you can never have true freedom without financial freedom. That's why you're here right now. So what else did you learn that can help you increase your cash flow? Hopefully you can apply some of it. So if you have a copy of the workbook, complete all the remaining worksheets in the chapter. You want to sit down and go through your personal financial strategy, okay? And then there's a book called Saving Your Future. If you haven't read it already, go through the pages 1 through 15 of that book. It'll be very helpful considering the content that we over here today. And hey, if you have some other folks here at Housing JV, we'd love to have a referral. That would be so great. So if you would be so kind as to invite someone else, that would be amazing. So money is good for fun, it's good to invest, and money is very good to give.